Welcome to Bookaccino Live, a lively talk about books from Bookreporter.com. We're here on Wednesday, January 12th, so I can still say Happy New Year. So glad to have you with us today. We have a terrific lineup of books. We've got a lot of books to share. Tom and I had a great time going through and looking through what's coming up in the next couple of months. It's going to be fabulous. So once again, if everybody who's attending live could drop in the chat what books you're reading right now, whether it's on print or on audio, we'd love to see. If anybody has a question for us, questions go in the Q&A down below so that Austin's not looking for the questions later on. We're going to do Q&A at the end. Okay. So here are your top picks from November. The first is The Maid by Nita Prose. And I just finished probably about 15 minutes ago an interview with Nita that we will be putting up next week, where she talks about The Maid and her being picked as one of the Good Morning America Book Club selections. She will be on Good Morning America tomorrow talking about the book. So any of you want to catch that live, we'll also put a link into our video and podcast links. Next, we've got The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. We know our readers are huge Fiona Davis fans, and this one is not going to disappoint. Jodi Picoult, Wish You Were Here, came out the end of November, has been rocking in sales, really, really doing well. So that was one of your big picks. It was Her Hidden Genius by Marie Benedict, another true favorite of our readers. And then Lucy, let me just go back one second. Lucy Foley, The Paris Apartment. So those were your selections, your top picks from November. Remember, we'll be doing this with everybody who's live again today. We'll be talking about that towards the end of the presentation. So here we go. Our first books are going to be in fiction this time around. We've got Fiona and Jane, which is by Jean Chen Ho, and it's on sale now. These are best friends since second grade. Fiona Lin and Jane Shen explore the lonely freeways and seedy bars of Los Angeles together through their teenage years, surviving unfulfilling romantic encounters and carrying with them the scars of their family's tumultuous pasts. Fiona was always destined to leave, her effortless beauty burnished by a fierce ambition, qualities that Jane admired and feared in equal measure. When Fiona moves to New York and cares for a sick friend through a breakup with an opportunistic boyfriend, Jane remains in California and grieves her estranged father's sudden death, and in the process alienating an overzealous girlfriend. Strained by distance and unintended betrayals, the women float in and out of each other's lives, their friendship both a beacon of home and a reminder of everything that they've lost. Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. Next, we've got Honor by Thrity Umberger, and this is the Reese Witherspoon's pick for this month. I am a huge fan of Thrity's. She wrote a beautiful book years ago. It was called Space Between Us. Was one of my absolute favorite books. I've got Honor on my stack to read now, and it's definitely moved up a couple of pegs. Indian American journalist Smita has returned to India to cover a story, but reluctantly. Long ago, she and her family left the country with no intention of ever coming back. As she follows the case of Meena, a Hindu woman attacked by members of her own village and her own family for marrying a Muslim man, Smita comes face to face with a society where tradition carries more weight than one's own heart, and a story that threatens to unearth painful secrets of her own past. While Meena's fate hangs in the balance, Smita tries in every way she can to right the scales. She also finds herself increasingly drawn to Mohan, an Indian man she meets while on assignment. But the dual love stories of Honor are as different as the cultures of Meena and Smita themselves. Smita realizes she has the freedom to enter into a casual affair, knowing she can decide later how much it means to her. So it's another very, very powerful book that's coming from Thrity. Next, we've got Olga Dies Dreaming, which is coming from Xochitl Gonzalez. And she is somebody who we just interviewed this week. We just put this interview up. She was absolutely terrific, wonderfully animated. I had such a great time talking to her last week. So she's Puerto Rican background, and she grew up in Brooklyn. And she really is, this book is so much of a homage to Brooklyn, and the Brooklyn that she knows, the old Brooklyn, not one that's being gentrified now. And it's so interesting to hear that take on what she's got infused in this book. So here it's 2017, and Olga and her brother Pedro Prieto Acevedo are bold-faced names in their hometown of New York. Prieto is a popular congressman representing their gentrifying Latinx neighborhood in Brooklyn, while Olga is the Tony wedding planner for Manhattan's power brokers. Now, I've got to tell you that when this book starts out, it almost feels like a rom-com of her describing what happens at these weddings. It is so incredibly fun. So for those opening pages, you're just into that. And then you're realizing the person who's planning all these weddings, that's not their life. What's their life on the other side? And she quickly flips us into that. Because despite their alluring public lives, behind closed doors, things are far less rosy. Yeah, Olga can orchestrate the love stories of the 1%. She can't seem to find her own until she meets Matteo, who forces her to confront the effects of long-held family secrets. And Matteo, as she describes him in the interview, is every guy. He's very happy to just go to the corner bar and have a drink. He's very happy to just be enjoying a party in his neighborhood. He doesn't have these big dreams and aspirations, but at the same time, he's a great guy. And all of a sudden, she's trying to reassess, like, what am I really looking for? What is going to be something that's perfect for me? Their mother, Blanca, a young lord turned radical, abandoned her children to advance a militant political cause, leaving them to be raised by their grandmother. And now with the winds of hurricane season, Blanca has come barreling back into their lives. And this also takes a look at what happened in Puerto Rico during the Hurricane Irma and what happened down there to people that are really United States citizens, and what was provided to them, what wasn't provided to them. And it gives you a lot of food for thought about people that are in an island where we think of as going for a vacation, but these are still people that are American citizens and what happens for them as a result. So there we've got Olga Dies Dreaming. Next, we've got The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. And this is a Read with Jenna book club pick this month. It's like funny, I'm just starting out with those three picks. And believe me, I didn't go into this planning that at all. So here we've got Frida Liu is struggling. She doesn't have a career worthy of her Chinese immigrant parents' sacrifices. She can't persuade her husband, Gus, to give up his wellness-obsessed younger mistress. Only with Harriet, their cherubic daughter, does Frida finally attain perfection expected of her. Harriet may be all she has, but she's just good enough until Frida has a very bad day. The state has its eyes on mothers like Frida, the ones who check their phones, letting their children get injured on the playground, the ones who let their children walk home alone. Because of one moment of poor judgment, a host of government officials will now determine if Frida is a candidate for a big brother-like institution that measures the success or failure of a mother's devotion. Faced with the possibility of losing Harriet, Frida must prove that a bad mother can be redeemed and that she can learn to be good. Let's try and get an interview with Jessamine. I've heard her speak about this book. I haven't once again on my stack, but I just loved hearing her talk about like what is a good mother and what makes a good mother. And I'd be interested to see how it plays through in this very sort of like a socialistic kind of title of like who's good and who's bad. Next, we've got The Starless Crown by James Rollins. Here we've got a gifted student foretells an apocalypse. Her reward is a sentence of death. Fleeing into the unknown, she's drawn into a team of outcasts, a broken soldier who once again takes up the weapons he's forbidden to wield and carves a trail back home, a drunken prince who steps out from behind his beloved brother's shadow and claims a purpose of his own, an imprisoned thief who escapes the crushing dark and discovers a gleaming artifact, one that will ignite a power struggle across the globe. On the run, hunted by enemies old and new, they must learn to trust each other in order to survive in a world evolved in strange, beautiful, and deadly ways and recover ancient secrets that hold the key to their salvation. But with each passing moment, doom draws closer. Now, James Rollins, we typically think of as a thriller writer, and here he is writing a fantasy novel, and we're going to try and sprinkle more fantasy titles, more fantasy and sci-fi titles into these presentations, because you know so many of you are telling us that you're looking for them. So here we had a real pleasure this month that Austin Rue, who is our producer, stepped in front of the camera and interviewed Jim about this book. And they talked a lot about how the pacing that he's used to writing with on a thriller, what he brings to his fantasy writing as well as world building. Austin is a far the better known, knows this category. So I asked him to pick up the interview and he did a brilliant job. I was listening in and it was so much fun. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And I'm hoping to get him in front of the camera more. We've already got something else scheduled for January, where he definitely has much more talent talking fantasy sci-fi than I do. And I love that we'll be able to expand what we're bringing to our readers. Next, we've got The Good Son by Jacqueline Michard. This is coming on January 18th. Stefan was just 17 when he went to prison for the drug-fueled murder of his girlfriend, Belinda. 3 years later, he's released to a world that refuses to let him move on. Belinda's mother, once Theo's good friend, galvanizes the community to rally against him, to protest her daughter's memory. The media paints Stefan as a symbol of white privilege and indifferent justice. Neighbors, employers, and even some members of Thea's own family turn away. But meanwhile, she struggles to understand her son. At times, he's still the sweet boy he's always been. At others, he's a young man tormented by guilt and almost broken by his time in prison. But as efforts to make amends meet escalating resistance and threats, she suspects more forces are at play than just community outrage. And if there is so much she never knew about her own son, what other secrets has she yet to uncover, especially about the night that Belinda died? And this has got a great quote from Kristen Hanna. Rich and complex, The Good Son is a compelling novel about the aftermath of a crime in a small, close-knit community. So another one that's on my pile. I'm always transfixed by a story where somebody did something when they were 17, and how are they going to carry it with them for the rest of their lives? So this is the new one from Jacqueline Michard. And you may well remember that she was with the first Oprah pick for, I believe it was The Deep End of the Ocean, so many years ago. So it's interesting to see how somebody's career has moved along through the years as well. Next, we've got Jonah's Okay by Wiki Wong. It's coming on January 18th. Joan is a 30-something ICU doctor at a busy New York City hospital. The daughter of Chinese parents who came to the United States to secure the American dream for their children, she's intensely devoted to her work. Happy, solitarily successful. She does look up sometimes and wonder where her true roots lie. At the hospital, where her white coat makes her feel needed, or with her family who try to shape her life by their own cultural and social expectations. Once Joan and her brother Fang were established in their careers, their parents moved back to China, hoping to spend the rest of their lives in the homeland. But when Joan's father suddenly dies and her mother returns to America to reconnect her with her children, a series of events sends Joan spiraling out of her comfort zone, just as her hospital, her city, and the world are forced to reckon with a health crisis more devastating than anyone could have imagined. So here we've got Joan is Okay. And Lily King says, I'm staggered by Wang's humor, heart, and brilliance. Next, we've got Black Cake, which is coming from Charmaine Wilkerson. I'm hearing a lot of buzz about this, which is coming out on February 1st. In present-day California, Eleanor Bennett's death leaves behind a puzzling inheritance for her two children, Byron and Benny, a traditional Caribbean black cake made from a family recipe with a long history and a voice recording. In her message, Eleanor shares a tumultuous story about a headstrong young swimmer who escapes her island back home under suspicion of murder. The heartbreaking tale Eleanor unfolds, the secrets she still holds back, and the mystery of a long-lost child challenge everything the siblings thought they knew about their lineage and themselves. Can Byron and Benny reclaim their once close relationship, piece together Eleanor's true history, and fulfill her final request: share the black cake when the time is right? Will their mother's revelations bring them back together or leave them more lost than ever? And Black Cake is currently in development as a Hulu original series. And now I'm sure that anyone who wants to have a book club discussion is going to see if we can find the recipe for Black Cake so they can make it as part of their conversation. So we'll see if we can find that out there for you as well. Next, we've got Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. And I know we previewed this book before. It's on sale on February 1st. When I was a child, I loved old men, and I could tell they also loved me. And so we are introduced to our deliciously incisive narrator, a popular English professor whose charismatic husband at the same liberal arts college is under investigation for his inappropriate relationships with his former students. The couple has long had a mutual understanding when it comes to their extramarital pursuits. But with these new allegations, life has become far less comfortable for both of them. And when our narrator becomes increasingly infatuated with Vladimir, a celebrated married young novelist who's just arrived on campus, their tinderbox world comes dangerously close to exploding. Now, this will definitely look like a seamy romance, but I've been told, folks, it's a much more deep story. But there's Vladimir on the cover. Next, we've got historical fiction, another category we know you love. We're going to open with Julia Kelly, The Last Dance of the Debutant. We have a fabulous review of this book that's up on the site now. When it's announced, 1958 will be the last year debutantes are to be presented at court. Thousands of eager mothers and hopeful daughters flood the palace with letters seeking the year's most coveted invitation, a chance for their daughters to curtsy to the young Queen Elizabeth and officially come out in society. In an effort to appease her traditional mother, aspiring university student Lily Nichols agrees to become a debutante and do the season, a glittering and grueling string of countless balls and cocktail parties. In doing so, she befriends two very different women, a cool and aloof Lena Hartford, whose apparent perfection hides a darker side, and the ambitious Katherine Norman, who dreams of a career once she helps her parents find their place among the elite. But the glorious effervescence of the season evaporates when Lily learns a devastating secret that threatens to destroy her entire family. So this is one of those big novels of another time. I mean, that dress there is just so sumptuously beautiful. I mean, who walks around in that these days? Please, we're all going around in like athletic gear. I long to be back in dresses like that. Next, we've got Our Kind of People by Carol Wallace. And yeah, we've got kind of the same theme going here. This is from Putnam and it's out this week. Helen Wilcox has one desire: to successfully launch her daughters into society. From the upper crust herself, her unconventional, if happy marriage has made the girl's social position precarious. And then her husband gambles the family fortunes on an elevated railroad that he claims will transform the face of the city and the way the people of New York live. Will it ruin the Wilcoxes first? And as daughters Jemima and Alice navigate the rise and fall of their family, each is forced to re-examine who she is and even who she is meant to love. So there's Our Kind of People by Carol Wallace. And Stacey Schiff, the author of Cleopatra, calls this an exuberant novel of manners for our own Gilded Age. And it also says, among New York City's Gilded Age elite, one family will defy convention. So there you go. Next, we've got, I know, a reader, an author favorite for our readers. It's Marie Benedict, and she's back with Her Hidden Genius, which just has an amazingly beautiful cover on it. Rosalind Franklin has always been an outsider, brilliant, but different. Whether working at the lab she adored in Paris or toiling at university in London, she feels closest to the science, those unchanging laws of physics and chemistry that guide her experiments. She's designed to work on DNA. She believes she can unearth its secrets. She knows it'll take one more X-ray picture, one more after thousands. She can unlock the building blocks of life. And never again will she have to listen to her colleagues complain about her, especially Maurice Wilkins, who'd rather conspire about genetics with James Watson and Francis Crick than work alongside with her. And then it finally happens. The double helix structure of DNA reveals itself to her with perfect clarity. What unfolds next, she never could have predicted. This is coming on January 25th. And another fan favorite, one that we picked, you picked in November as a preview title you were looking forward to. It's The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis, also coming on January 25th. 8 months since losing her mother in the Spanish flu outbreak of 1919, 21-year-old Lillian Carter's life has fallen apart. In the past 6 years, under the moniker of Angelica, she was one of the most sought-after models in New York City. She stumbles upon an employment opportunity at the Frick Mansion, the daughter, and jumps at the chance. But the longer she works for the demanding Helen Frick, the daughter and heiress of industrialist and art patron Henry Clay Frick, the more deeply her life gets intertwined with that of the family, bringing her into a tangled web of romantic trysts, stolen jewels, and family drama. So now nearly 50 years later, because Fiona usually writes in two different time zones, time frames, not time zones, time frames. The mod English model Veronica Weber has her chance to make her career within the walls of the former Frick residence, now converted into one of New York's most impressive museums. But she's dismissed from the Vogue shoot. Taking place at the Frick collection, she chances upon a series of hidden messages in the museum. The messages will lead her on a hunt that can not only solve her family's financial woes, but could finally reveal the truth behind a decades-old murder in the infamous Frick family. So the Frick Museum, as many of you know, is in New York. Once life returns to normal, it would be a great place for a book club to go to the museum, go to a place and have lunch and have a discussion. So someday we'll be back in the Magnolia Palace. Violetta by Isabel Allende is coming also on January 25th. Violetta comes into the world on a stormy day in 1920, the first girl in a family with 5 boisterous sons. From the start, her life is marked by extraordinary events, for the ripples of the Great War are still being felt, even as the Spanish flu arrives on the shores of her South American homeland, almost at the moment of her birth. Through her father's prescience, the family will come through that crisis unscathed, only to face a new one as the Great Depression transforms the genteel city she has known. Her family loses everything and is forced to retreat to a wild and beautiful but remote part of the country. And there she will come of age, and her first suitor will come calling. She tells her story in the form of a letter to someone she loves above all others, recounting times of devastating heartbreak and passionate affairs, poverty and wealth, terrible loss and immense joy. So we've got Violetta by Isabel Allende. What's really interesting, I think I've talked about this in the past, is Isabel Allende writes a letter to her mother. At least the last time I'd heard her mother was alive, and she was writing a letter to her mother every day, and her mother would write a letter to her, handwritten notes about what had happened that day in their lives. And think about what a treasure trove of fabulous stories that would hold for people at a time where right now everything is an email. And if you change your email address, where does your email go? Where's our shared history going to be as years go on? We're not sending Christmas cards the way we used to do. We don't write thank you notes the same way we used to do them. So as a result, what is being shared in this letter writing going back and forth? And she is absolutely somebody that can tell the story in a form of a letter because she's so used to doing letter writing. Now we've got thrillers and mysteries. We've got a number of these for you. Oops. The first one, why am I going there? There we go. First one is Anthem by Noah Hawley, and it is on sale now. And part of the description I'm going to use here is from our reviewer, Nora, who last week did such a good job of talking about this book. Noah Hawley's 6th novel is one of those books that's difficult to characterize. It's a work of dark political satire, a near-future thriller, a road trip novel, and an epic quest. It kicks off a few years in the future when today's children, now teenagers, who are still emotionally scarred from growing up during a pandemic, have begun killing themselves in vast numbers. A new and horrific sort of pandemic that is leaving their Gen X parents both perplexed and terrified. Simon Oliver is trying to recover from his sister's tragic passing, and he joins a woman named Louise and a man called the Prophet on a quest as urgent as it is enigmatic. Their journey is spun through the pages of Anthem. And, it sounds like a really, terrible premise of what's going on right now, but I don't think we still are going to see what the ramifications are of socialization and lack of socialization on children over what's really almost been 2 years now at this point. And I think this is taking a really, drastic look at it, but it's the kind of thing in Noah's hands. He knows how to shape and he knows how to do. Next, we've got The Maid that I spoke about a little bit earlier by Nita Prose. This was a book that you were really excited about, the book that you were most excited about when we previewed it during our November presentation. So here we go, folks. Molly Gray is not like everyone else. She struggles with social skills and misreads the intentions of others. Molly's orderly life as a hotel maid is upended the day she enters the suite of the infamous and wealthy Charles Black, only to find it in a state of disarray. Mr. Black himself is dead in his bed. Before she knows what's happening, Molly's usual demeanor has the police targeting her as their lead suspect. Fortunately for Molly, friends she never knew she had unite with her in a search for clues to what really happened to Mr. Black in a quest to find the real killer before it's too late. The Maid is a clue-like locked room mystery and a heartwarming journey of the spirit. And Lisa Jewell calls it smart, riveting, and deliciously refreshing, a murder mystery with tremendous heart. And that's exactly what it is. This also has been picked up by Universal and is being made into a feature film. And there's lots of really good news that's coming with this as well. So super excited for Nita. Fabulous interview. It will be up next week. So looking forward to sharing that with you. She has such exuberance. Also, Nita's prose is actually the pseudonym of a person who's the editorial director of a publishing line up in Canada. So this is somebody who's now switched to the other side of the table in writing. And it's interesting to hear from her what she's learned, what she knew going into the experience, and what she's learned as time has gone on. So this is more than just writing a novel. It's also an experience of being on the other side of the desk. And she does a really good job of talking about that during our interview. Next, we've got Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, and she's the best-selling author of The Wife Upstairs. And in this, girls, they're dying for an escape. It's on sale now. Beautiful, wild, and strange, Barrow Island is a desolate spot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with a mysterious history of shipwrecks, cannibalism, and even rumors of murder. It's a perfect destination for the most adventurous traveler to escape everything except the truth. 6 stunning 20-somethings are about to embark on a blissful, free-spirited journey, one filled with sun-drenched days and intoxicating nights. But as it becomes clear that the group is even more cut off from civilization than they originally thought, it starts to feel like the island itself is closing in, sending them on a dangerous spiral of discovery. When one person goes missing and another turns up dead, the remaining friends wonder what dark currents lie beneath this impenetrable paradise and who else will be swept up under its secluded chaos. Locked room mystery happening on an island. For any of us who would like to be on an island right now, here's your read. You can be there. You can be as stressed out as these girls are, but go for the sun-drenched days and the intoxicating nights. Let's stay in that mode. Next, from Laura Lippman, we've got Stories, Seasonal Work, a collection of stories, and it is on sale now. Her beloved Baltimore PI Tess Monahan keeps a watchful eye on a criminally resourceful single father in the title story of this collection, while her mother Judith realizes that the life of the everyday housewife is an excellent cover for all kinds of secrets. In Slow Burner, a husband's secret cell phone proves to be a dicey temptation for a suspicious wife. A father's hidden past piques the curiosity of a young snoop in The Last of Sheila Locke Holmes. In Just One More, a married couple longing for that old romantic spark creates a playful diversion that comes with unexpected consequences, plus 7 other stories of deception, murder, dangerous games, and love gone wrong. So there we've got Seasonal Work, stories from Laura Lippman. Now we've got from Alifair Burke, we've got Find Me. She calls herself Hope Miller, but she has no idea who she actually is. 15 years ago, she was found in a small New Jersey town, thrown from an overturned vehicle. Doctors assumed her amnesia was temporary, but she never regained her memory. Hope eventually started a new life with a new name and a new town. And now she's leaving New Jersey to start all over again. Manhattan defense lawyer Lindsay Kelly understands why Hope wants a new beginning, but she worries how her friend will fare in her new East Hampton home. Lindsay's worst fears are confirmed when she discovers Hope has vanished without a trace. The only lead is a drop of blood found where she was last seen, and the blood matches a DNA sample with a connection to a notorious Kansas murderer. Lindsay calls New York Police Department homicide detective Ellie Hatcher, the daughter of the cop who died 20 years ago after dedicating his life to hunting the Kansas killer. And Ellie now fears that Hope's recent disappearance could be related. When you realize how much we can find out these days from blood and from DNA, how many criminals are being found, how in this case we're finding the connection to a notorious Kansas murderer, is this whole new way of solving crimes and what police have at their hands, and also what writers like Alifair have at their hands as well to write about. Next from Diane Chamberlain, we've got The Last House in the Street. I'm crazy about this book. It's going to be a Book Reporter Bets on selection. It does dual time frames, but it does it with the people overlapping as well in a most clever way. It's on sale this week. So we start in 1965, and growing up in the well-to-do town of Round Hill, North Carolina, Ellie Hawley was raised to be a certain type of proper Southern lady. But she has chosen to spend her summer break from the college as a volunteer helping to register Black voters. As she follows her ideals, fighting for the civil rights of the marginalized, her scandalized parents scorn her efforts, and her neighbors reveal their prejudices. Her mother is no longer invited to book club. Her father is ostracized where he's working in his pharmacy. People start to go to another one. Anything to be not dealing with the people whose daughter is, like on this quest for people to have their freedom to vote. When she loses her heart to a fellow volunteer, she discovers the frightening true nature of the people living in Round Hill. So let's flash forward to 2010. An architect, Kayla Carter, and her husband designed a beautiful home for themselves in Round Hill's new development, Shadow Ridge Estates. It's supposed to be a home where they could raise their 3-year-old daughter and grow old together. And instead, it's a place where Kayla's husband died in an accident, a fact known to a mysterious woman who warns Kayla against moving in. Her neighbor, Ellie Hawley, Ellie from above, see Ellie. Okay, got it. Okay, good. I didn't have to explain it. Thank you. Is harboring long buried secrets about the dark history of the land where her house was built. So here we're going to have characters. They're going to go right back. You're going to be reading one story. The next chapter, you're going to see Ellie in life today. And I really love the way Diane played with this. It's extremely well done. Next, from Lisa Gardner, we've got One Step Too Far, which is the latest novel from her Frankie Elkin series. This one sends missing persons expert Frankie Elkin into a national forest in Wyoming, looking for a young man who disappeared without a trace. But when the search team encounters immediate threats to their survival, Frankie realizes she's up against something very dark and she's running out of time. So this is Lisa Gardner, who a couple of years ago, Austin and I will remember when we interviewed her, said she wasn't going to be writing. She was writing a standalone. Well, this is the third book with Frankie Elkin, so I guess it's become a series. So it's coming on January 18th. Next from Nick Petrie, we've got The Runaway, which is a Peter Ash novel. And I'm bringing this novel to your attention. My husband is a huge Nick Petrie fan. This and Mark Greaney are his two favorites. This is coming on January 18th. War veteran Peter Ash is driving through northern Nebraska when he encounters a young pregnant woman alone on a gravel road. Her car is dead. Peter offers her a lift. What begins as an act of kindness soon turns into a deadly cat and mouse chase across the lonely highways with the woman's vicious ex-cop husband hot on the trail. The pregnant woman has seen something she was never meant to see, but protecting her might prove more than Peter can handle. In order to save the woman and himself, Peter must use everything he has learned during his time as a Marine, including his knowledge of human nature, in order to escape a ruthless killer with instincts and skills that match and perhaps exceed Peter's own. So there we've got The Runaway by Nick Petrie. Next from Lisa Lutz, we've got The Accomplice. It's coming on January 25th. Owen Mann is charming, privileged, and chronically dissatisfied. Luna Gray is secretive, cautious, and pragmatic. Despite their differences, they form a bond the moment they meet in college. Their names soon become indivisible. Owen and Luna, Luna and Owen. And they stay that way even after an unexplained death rocks their social circle. They're still best friends years later when Luna finds Owen's wife brutally murdered. The police investigation sheds light on some long-hidden secrets, but can't penetrate the wall of mystery that surrounds Owen. To get to the heart of what happened and why, Luna has to dig up the one secret she spent her whole life burying. So you've got The Accomplice from Lisa Lutz. Now we've got, for all of us who love books, we've got the Department of Rare Books and Special Collections. It's coming on January 25th. By Eva, I'm going to try and do her last name. I think it's Jursic. Lisa Weiss has longed to be Lisa Weiss long ago learned to be content working behind the scenes in the distinguished rare books department of a large university, managing details and working to make the head of department look good. But when her boss has a stroke and she's left to run things, she discovered that the library's most prized manuscript is missing. She tries to sound the alarm and inform the police about the priceless book being missing, but is told repeatedly to keep quiet, keep the doors open, and keep the donors happy. But then a librarian unexpectedly stops showing up to work, and she must investigate both disappearances, unspooling her colleagues' pasts like the threads of a rare book binding, as it becomes clear that someone in the department must be responsible for the theft. So Matthew Sullivan, who wrote Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore, is calling this a rare treat for readers. And we know reading about rare books and special collections is something we all love to do. Next, we've got Greenwich Park by Katherine Faulkner. That's coming on January 25th. And if I wasn't doing this presentation today, and if I wasn't working today, I would be finishing this book, which I am completely enjoying. And I'm hoping to get an interview with Katherine. Helen's idyllic life begins to change the day she attends her first prenatal class and meets Rachel, an unpredictable single mother-to-be. Rachel doesn't seem very maternal. She smokes, drinks, and professes little interest in parenthood. Still, Helen is drawn to her. Maybe Rachel needs a friend. And to be honest, Helen's a little bit lonely because after all, she stopped working and nobody really wants to hang out with her these days. At least Rachel's fun to be with. She makes Helen laugh, she invites her confidences, and she distracts her fears. But her increasing erratic behavior is unsettling, and Helen is not the only one who noticed. Her friends and family begin to suspect her strange new friend may be linked to their shared history and unexpected ways. When Rachel threatens to expose a past crime that could destroy all their lives, it becomes clear that there are more than a few secrets lying behind the broad-leaved trees and warm lamplight of Greenwich Park. And it's one of those books where you know this woman is like intensely creepy, and you still keep reading because you just want to try and figure out what's going on. We've got a quote from Zakiya Delia Harris, who wrote The Other Black Girl, that says it's gripping and haunting and gorgeously suspenseful. And I would agree with all of those things. Plus, there's a lot of places in London that she's got some Britishisms in. And I find myself like looking up words of what they mean, because there are kinds of things where like I'm not completely there. So I feel like I'm in another place as well, which is always lovely. Next, we've got The Overnight Guest from Heather Gudenkoff. True crime writer Wiley Lark doesn't mind being snowed in at the isolated farmhouse where she retreated to write her new book. A cozy fire, complete silence. It would be perfect if not for the fact that decades earlier at this very house, 2 people were murdered in cold blood and a girl disappeared without a trace. Just those small things. The storm worsens. Wiley finds herself trapped inside the house, haunted by the secrets contained within its walls, haunted by secrets of her own as well. And then she discovers a small child in the snow just outside. To bring the child inside for warmth and safety, she begins to search for answers. But soon it becomes clear that the farmhouse isn't as isolated as she thought, and someone is willing to do anything to find them. Started reading this. I'm going to finish this book, and I'm hoping to interview Heather as well. She's somebody I've enjoyed reading through the years, and looking forward to seeing what she's up to now, and hearing what she's working on these last couple of years as well. Liv Constantine says she's a master of suspense, and The Overnight Guest will have you glued to the page and leave you wanting more. Next, we've got something lighter and fun for all of us who wish we were in an island right now. It's Something's Guava Give, and it's from the Trouble in Paradise series that's written by Carrie Doyle. It's coming on January 25th. Come on, people. We all want to go to the islands right now. We all want to just sit there and have a good time and, well, get away. But, oh, wait, what's that tiger doing on the beach? And why is that body there? Okay, so Plum Lockhart went out on a limb in the last book. This is the second book in a series, but you can read them as a standalone. When she dipped her corporate job in New York City and moved to the Caribbean island of Paraiso. Now the head of her own villa broker agency, she spends her days chasing down clients and lounging on white sand beaches. But the sweet life turns sour when a publishing heiress is found dead at the mansion of an eccentric tycoon, Dieter Friedrich. Even worse, Plum's old colleague cashes in on a favor and asks her to investigate. Looks like she'll need to fit a murder case into her already jam-packed schedule. Friedrich is known for his shady dealings, but he's not the only bad apple on the island. Plum will have to contend with a scheming millionaire, a sleazy rock star, and devious B-list celebrities. And joining Plum once again is Juan Kevin Munoz, the distractingly gorgeous director of security. Despite the sparks between them, they'll need to stay focused on the case. There's a murderer hot on their heels. There we go. Something's guava give. Come on, guys. We need some levity in our thrillers as well. Next, we've got a book called Under Money by Jane Newman. And Jane Newman's got a past in the financial world. So he definitely has a story here that is going to just make your skin crawl. Nelson DeMille said, this is nothing short of jaw-dropping, combines the fresh feel and energy of a debut novel with the self-assured writing of a man who knows something we don't and knows it well. Groundbreaking, unconventional, and wildly entertaining. So when a U.S. airdrop of billions of dollars disappears in the desert sands of Syria, only a small group of military operatives knows its ultimate destination or why it has been stolen. Their goal is no less than the restoration of America's geopolitical dominance on a global stage. Central to the scheme are Greta Webb, a sophisticated CIA operative who's an expert on dark money, not to mention lethally skilled in hand-to-hand combat, and Elias Vicker, the damaged, dangerous soul who runs the world's largest hedge fund. To achieve its goals, the group must form dangerous alliances. One is with the hidden family that manages the largest private pool of capital that ever has existed. Another is with Friedrich Volk, the ruthless founder of Russia's most successful private military company, a mercenary with ties to Vladimir Putin. Volk has his eye on Greta. She would be wise to avoid him, but cannot. When Jay talked about this and talked about the dark money that is being moved around the world in large sums, how it's moved, why it's moved, all this stuff that's like under the surface of what we see it day to day, it was absolutely chilling. I listened to him for an hour and you realize that there's a whole other world behind the world that we know right now. And a lot of stuff is simmering there. Yes, we watch the markets, we see this and that. We don't see the black money that's being moved all around the place and what's really happening. And yes, what's being dropped into the sands of Syria is probably not untold that this is what is actually going on. Next, we've got The Other Family by Wendy Corsi Staub. It's coming on February 1st. It's a perfect home for the perfect family. Pretty Nora Howell, her handsome husband, their two teenage daughters, and a lovable dog. But as California transplants make a fresh start in Brooklyn, they expected to live in a shoebox. But the brownstone has a huge kitchen, lots of light, a backyard. The catch, its previous residents were victims of a grisly triple homicide that remains unsolved. So soon peculiar things begin happening. Pug is nosing around like a bloodhound. Nora unearths a long-hidden rusty box in the flower bed. The oldest daughter, Stacy, is obsessed with the family murdered in their house, pokes into the bloody past, and becomes convinced that a stranger is watching the house, watching them. She's right, but one of the Howells will recognize his face, because one of them has a secret that will blindside the others with the truth that lies shockingly close to home and to this one's terrifying history. So Harlan Coben says, great psychological suspense with a wallop of a twist, which is high praise from him. And we see here, the watcher knows who you are and what you did. So here we've got The Other Family. If you don't get the sense after hearing about these thrillers that if you did something wrong, it's going to come back to haunt you, stay up nights tonight. I'm telling you, you should be. Next, we got The Violin Conspiracy, which is coming from Brendan Slocum on February 1st. Ray McMillan loves playing the violin more than anything else, and nothing will stop him from pursuing his dream of becoming a professional musician. Not his mother, who thinks he should get a real job, not the fact that he can't afford a high caliber violin, not the racism inherent in the classical music world. And when he makes the startling discovery that his great-grandfather's fiddle is actually a priceless Stradivarius, his star begins to rise. Then with the International Tchaikovsky competition, the Olympics of classical music fast approaching, his prized heirloom is stolen. He's determined to get it back. But now his family and descendants of the man who once enslaved Ray's great-grandfather are each claiming the violin belongs to them. With the odds stacked against him and the pressure mounting, will Ray ever see his beloved violin again? We've got The Violin Conspiracy. Next, we've got some memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. Starting with Chasing History, A Kid in the Newsroom by Carl Bernstein. It's on sale this week. In 1960, Carl Bernstein was just a 16-year-old at considerable risk of failing to graduate high school. Inquisitive, self-taught, and yes, truant, he landed a job as a copy boy at the Evening Star, the afternoon paper in Washington. And by 19, he was a reporter. Just think about that. Think about that. Look at that background. Chasing history, a kid in the newsroom, he recalls the origins of his storied journalistic career as it chronicles the Kennedy era, the swelling civil rights movement, and a slew of grisly crimes. He spins a buoyant, frenetic account of educating himself in what Bob Woodward describes as the genius of perpetual engagement. So we've got Carl Bernstein, chasing history. I've got, many of you watched Ginger, they deliver the weather forecast on Good Morning America. This is a book called A Little Closer to Home, How I Found the Calm After the Storm. It's on sale this week. When ABC chief meteorologist Ginger Z opened up her life to readers in natural disaster, the response was enormous. She put a very relatable, if surprising face on depression and has helped lessen the stigma surrounding mental health issues. But Ginger tells us natural disaster was Ginger light and it only scratched the surface. In this moving follow-up, she shares her truest self. She spent most of her life shielding her vulnerabilities from the world, all while being a professional people pleaser. Her stormy childhood, her ongoing struggles with crippling depression, her suicide attempts, and many other life experiences will resonate with readers who are likely to see themselves along the way. So there we've got somebody who has really come out and talked about what has bothered her whole life, what has infused her whole life in a most honest way. Next, we've got Rise, My Story by Lindsay Vonn. This book is on my desk. I love skiing. I met my husband skiing out in Colorado, and Lindsay Vonn has been just a fixture on the ski scene for so many years. She's a fixture in American sports landscape for almost 20 years, and she's a legend with a career that spanned a transformation in how America recognizes and celebrates female athletes. Vonn, who retired in 2019 as the most decorated American skier of all time, was in the vanguard of things of that change, helping to blaze a trail for other world-class female athletes and reimagining what it meant to pursue speed at all costs. In Rise, she shares her incredible journey for the first time, going behind the scenes of a badass life built around resilience and risk-taking. One of the most aggressive skiers ever. And you watch this woman hurl herself down these downhill trails. You see what people mean. She offers a fascinating glimpse into the relentless pursuit of her limits, pursuit so focused on one-upping herself that she pushed her body past its breaking point as she achieved greatness. There was a documentary on about her a couple of years ago, and you just saw all the stitches from everything that happened to her through the years of really taking her body apart and putting it together as she went down the slopes. Trust me, I'm on like the blues and the greens. I'm never on the blacks, and I'm definitely not on the steeps that she's on. But you sit there and you see how this woman was just going for like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to get down. And also how she ended her career in the Olympics and what happened a couple of years ago. We have to remember that with the Olympics coming up, there'll be a lot of play about talking about athletes. And we always realize that couple of moments when they come down, a couple of minutes when they skated, but what is the rest of their lives like? And it's interesting to take a look like here with Rise, My Story. Now we've got some March titles to look forward to. Because yes, March will be coming in like 20 minutes at the rate at which my year is going. It feels like it's going so quickly. Okay, The Tobacco Wives by Adele Myers is coming on March 1st. And Lisa Wingate calls this a beautifully rendered portrait of a young woman finding her courage and her voice. Maddie Sykes is a burgeoning seamstress who's just arrived in Brightleaf, North Carolina, the tobacco capital of the South, where her aunt has a thriving sewing business. After years of war rations and shortages, Brightleaf is a prosperous wonderland in full Technicolor bloom. And Maddie is dazzled by the bustle of the crisply uniformed female factory workers, the palatial homes, and most of all, her aunt's glossiest clientele, the wives of the powerful tobacco executives. But she soon learns that Brightleaf isn't quite the carefree paradise that it seems. The trail of misfortune follows many of the women, including substantial health problems. Although Maddie is quick to believe that this is a coincidence, she inadvertently uncovers evidence that suggests otherwise. Maddie wants to report what she knows, but in a town where everyone depends on big tobacco to survive, she doesn't know who she can trust, and she fears that exposing the truth may destroy the lives of the proud, strong women with whom she has forged strong bonds. So there we've got Tobacco Wives. I think that's a brilliant cover with the cigarette lighter there. It's brilliant, or the lighter. Okay, now we've got from Brad Meltzer, a Zig and Nola novel. Archie Mint has led a charmed life, but when he's killed while trying to stop a robbery in his own home, his family's shattered and then shocked when the other shoe drops. Mint has been hiding criminal secrets none of them could have imagined. While working on Mint's body before his funeral, mortician Zig Zigorowski discovers something he has never meant to see. That telling detail leads him to Mint's former top secret military unit and a connection to artist Nola Brown. 2 years ago, Nola saved Zig's life, so he knows better than most that she's volatile and dangerous. Following Nola's trail, he uncovers one of the U.S. government's most intensely guarded secrets, an undisclosed military facility that dates back to the Cold War and holds the key to something far more sinister, a hidden group willing to compromise the very safety and security of America itself. So we've got The Lightning Rod from Brad Meltzer, and Lee Child calls it a terrific, compelling, unputdownable thriller. Next, we know we've talked about this book before, My Darling Husband by Kimberly Bell. The audio and the ebook came out in December. The paperback is going to be on sale on March 8th, and we want to make sure that's on your radar with supply chain that we didn't know about 2 years ago. Now we know way too much about issues. The print copies of this are falling later, so it's coming out in paperback on March 8th. And here we've got this couple that are all, by all accounts, happily married, 2 adorable kids, spacious home, a rapidly growing restaurant business. But the world is tipped upside down when Jade is confronted by a masked home invader. As Cam scrambles to gather some of the ransom money, Jade starts to wonder if they're really as financially secure as their lifestyle suggests, and what other secrets her husband's keeping from her. Cam may be a good father, a celebrity chef, and a darling husband, but there's another side he's kept hidden from Jade that has put their family in danger. Unbeknownst to Cam and Jade, the home invader has been watching them and is about to turn their family secrets into a public scandal. So there you've got the My Darling Husband by Kimberly Bell. Her Last Affair by John Searles. We haven't heard from John in the last couple of years, and I was really looking forward to a new book coming from him. It's coming on March 22nd. Skyla lives alone in the shadow of the defunct drive-in movie theater that she and her husband ran for nearly 50 years. Ever since Hollis's death in a freak accident the year before, Skyla spends her nights ruminating about the regrets and deceptions in her long marriage. That is, until she rents a cottage on the property to a charming British man, Teddy Cornwell. 1,000 miles away, Linnell is about to turn 50. Bored by her spouse and fired from her job when a questionable photo from her youth surfaces on social media, her only source of joy is an online affair with her very first love, man she's not seen in 30 years, Teddy Cornwell. While in New York, Jeremy, a failed and bitter writer, accepts an assignment to review a new restaurant in Providence. Years ago, Providence was the site of his first great love and his first great heartbreak, and maybe he'll look her up when he's back in town. So we've got all these stories coming together with The Last Affair. And Chris Bajalian has this to say about it. John Searles brings the misfits among us to life with the clarity of Carson McCullers and then scares us with the brilliance of Stephen King. So there's pretty high praise. Next, we've got a book that we know that a lot of people are excited about, The Diamond Eye, which is coming from Kate Quinn on March 29th. In the snowbound city of Kiev, Ryan bookish history student Myla, let me see if I can do this, Pavlichenko, organizes her life around her library job and her young son. But Hitler's invasion of Russia sends her on a different path. Given a rifle and sent to join the fight, Myla must forge herself from studious girl to deadly sniper, a lethal hunter of Nazis, known only as Lady Death. When the news of her 300th kill makes her a national heroine, Myla finds herself torn from the bloody battlefields of the Eastern Front and sent to America on a goodwill tour. Still reeling from the war wounds and devastated by loss, she finds herself isolated and lonely in the glittering world of Washington, D.C., until an unexpected friendship with First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and an even more unexpected connection with a silent fellow sniper offer the possibility of happiness. But when an old enemy from Milo's past joins forces with a deadly new foe lurking in the shadows, Lady Death finds herself battling her own demons and enemy bullets with the deadliest duel of her life. And Alison Pataki says, Kate Quinn has brilliantly hit her mark. This is a stunning novel about a singular historical heroine. So there we've got The Diamond Eye from Kate Quinlan. Then we've got The Long Weekend coming on from Gilly Macmillan, also coming on March 29th. I like this book, Three Couples, Two Bodies, One Secret. Darkfell Barn is a perfectly isolated retreat, or so says its website when Jane books a reservation for her friends. A quiet place, far removed from the rest of the world, is exactly what they need. The women arrive for a girls' night again ahead of their husbands. But what they hope will be a relaxing break still soon turns to horror. Upon arrival at Darkfell Barn, the women find a devastating note claiming one of their husbands will be murdered. There are no phones, no cell service to check on their men. Friendships fracture as the situation spins wildly out of control. Betrayal can come in many different forms. All I can say after hearing that, folks, is maybe we're better off just staying at home. Who wants to go to the perfectly isolated retreat? No, home sounds pretty safe. I don't know, except like that other house we heard. I'm not so sure. Heather Gudenkoff's got one, a scary house. Now we've got What Happened to the Bennetts by Lisa Scottolini. Lisa's last book was Eternal, which is a historical thriller. This is a standalone, no, it's a historical. This is a thriller, and we've got it coming on March 29th. And boy, do we have a premise set up here. Jason Bennett is a suburban dad who owns a court reporting business. But one night, his life takes a horrific turn. He's driving the family home after his daughter's lacrosse game when a pickup truck begins tailgating them on a dark stretch of road. Suddenly, two men jump from the pickup and pull guns on Jason, demanding the car. A horrific flash of violence changes his life forever. Later that awful night, Jason and his family receive a visit from the FBI. The agents tell them that the carjackers were members of a dangerous drug trafficking organization, and now Jason and his family are in their crosshairs. The agent advised the Bennetts to enter the witness protection program right away, and they have no choice but to agree. But it was designed to protect criminal informants, not law-abiding families. Taken from all they know, trapped in an unfamiliar life, the Bennetts begin to fall apart at the seams. And then Jason learns a shocking truth and realizes he has to take matters into his own hands. And you know that Lisa's going to twist us around, and we're going to be inside the Bennetts' lives, and we're going to find out what happened to the Bennetts. That's the conclusion of our update of what's coming up in the next couple of months. We've got a couple of recent videos and podcasts. We've got Olga Dry Dreaming with Seychelle Gonzalez up live now. We've got Austin talking about The Starless Crown. I talked to Karen White about her latest book and also what she's working on next. And we've got The Collective from Allison Galen. So there's 4 great interviews, most recent, to go back and take a look at. And now we've got something exciting to announce. Our next Bookaccino Live book group event will be on Wednesday, February 23rd at 8 p.m. with Lisa Scottolini discussing Eternal. And this is her first historical. It's set in Italy during World War II. We're looking forward to having this conversation with her and with an expanded group of readers. Maybe you've gotten to see Lisa before. Maybe you've gotten to chat with her about this book, but we're promising an evening where you're going to be able to ask questions from the audience. If you want to ask a question on camera, let us know, and we'll let you talk to Lisa on camera. I'll open with some dialogue with her. Then we'll go to the readers on camera, and then we'll go to some questions. So it's time for you now to be thinking about reading Eternal. It's coming out in paperback on February 1st. So if you haven't read it already, there's time to still read and pick that up. And we've already got an exciting guest lined up for March 23rd, but I'm not going to share that this time. We'll share it at our next Bookaccino Live event, but we've got a really special treat set up for you there too. And I'm hearing wonderful comments from people about The Day the World Came to Town and how much that book has really meant to them and how they hadn't read it before our November event, and others who had read it but found that they got more insight into it. It's the story, as you know, about the Day the World Came to Town is Come From Away, the Broadway show. It's the premise for that. And a lot of people had seen the show and then went back and read the book and had a lot deeper experience. So that's what we like to do with these book club events, is give you a chance to get out of your own thinking about the book and share some a larger view of what's going on. And here's to some great reading. Our next Bookaccino Live event will be on Wednesday, February 9th at 2:00 in the afternoon. Sign up will be live later today, and knowing Tom Donadio, it's probably live by now. So we will have that for you, and we will send that out in follow-up as well. To everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you for our next Bookaccino Live. We love doing these events where we can give you a glimpse of what's out now and what's coming up later on.